Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today in this video lecture I'll introduce you to the famous modernist poem The Love Song of Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. This poem was written around 1910 or 11 but it was published in 1915 and it was under the persuasion of Eliot's friend Ezra Pound that this poem was published in the magazine Poetry. And later on in the year 1907, this literary piece was published in Prufrock, in the collection of poems Prufrock and Other Observations. It is to be noted that this poem was written before the First World War began. Initially, this poem was titled as Prufrock Among the Women, but later, before it was published in the magazine Poetry, the title was changed as The Love Song of Alfred Prufrock. As far as the name of the protagonist or the main character is concerned, Prufrock, this name was taken by Eliot from a business enterprise which was found in his hometown, Lois, and the name of the business enterprise was William Prufrock Furniture. But the two initials that we find, that Alfred Prufrock, these two initials were invented by the poet himself. If we take into account the two words love song, these two words are taken by, these two words are not taken, rather I would say these two words were used by Eliot with reference to Rudyard Kipling's poem, The Love Song of Hardayal, which was published in the collection Plain Tales from the Hills. As far as the structure of the poem is concerned, we know that it is a dramatic monologue, and the function or the purpose of a dramatic monologue is a kind of, it is a kind of character study which provides readers with an account, of the mental condition or inner feelings of the speaker to the narrator. So it means that since it's a dramatic monologue, this poem will provide us with more personal information of the speaker instead of focusing on the topic or the subject that is discussed by the speaker, which means that we are going to have an insight into the psyche of the protagonist Prufrock. As a modernist text, it is very, very important to note that this poem contains all the hallmarks of modernist writing. To start with, allusions. We find T.S. Eliot using several allusions, to literary works in order to depict the subject matter, or in order to make the subject matter more and more prominent in the poem. Like he refers to Shakespeare's Hamlet. Then in the very beginning of the poem we have the epigraph, which is from Dante's Inferno. Besides this, we find that the language that is used by Eliot in the poem, it is not going to praise the subject matter. Instead, he has used language in a way which mocks the subject matter. And then a very innovative technique of the modernist writing was fragmentation. And this fragmentation is found throughout the poem, and Eliot has, very deliberately used fragmentation, this technique of fragmentation, in order to portray Prufrock's swirling thoughts, because we find the character Prufrock, moving from swirling from one thought to another, and in order to portray that, Eliot has used this technique of fragmentation. As far as the themes are concerned that are embedded in the poem, we find that the themes are such that they define the essence of the modern period. They contribute to the poem, making it, an ideal modernist poem. In this poem, we find T.S. Eliot, dealing with self-reflection, the character's conscious and subconscious thoughts. Prufrock is portrayed as a modern man of the early 20th century who suffers from self-isolation, alienation, and it is his self-isolation or alienation from society that makes him suffer so much. Prufrock is depicted as an individual whose physical, as well as intellectual paralysis or inertia simply prevents him from articulating or communicating his inner feelings, and at the same time it prevents him from seizing various opportunities in his life. And we also find his lack of spiritual progress, which has affected his overall being. As we read the poem, we find that Prufrock suffers from an immense fear as well as insecurity. It is this, and maybe it is because of his lack of confidence which has resulted in this immense fear and his insecurity. He is indeed a tortured soul who suffers from mental inadequacy, and at the same time he is unable to assert himself. Because of his lack of confidence, we find that he's also unable to act upon his desires, and he feels like expressing his feelings for the woman, but then he continues to delay the process, and in fact we find Prufrock he comes up rather with several excuses and retreats. So Prufrock is we see that how Prufrock gets prevented from taking the risk to approach the potential lover who he claims to be in love with, and his mind is filled with anxieties as well as obsession, and at the same time he hallucinates that other people around him are making fun of his inadequacies, like his physical appearance. So we find that Prufrock is actually afraid of the people around him, and these people, we can say these people could be the women around, as well as these people could also represent society. So Prufrock is afraid that society would be very, very judgmental towards him, and having learned about his objective or about his purpose to speak out his feelings or express his feelings to the woman, they would make fun of him. So he's afraid of the judgmental society, and this prevents him from articulating his emotions, his feelings. So in other words, we can say that this poem describes a typical modern man of the early 20th century, as well as it focuses on his emotions, which make him raise questions about his place in the society. And not only that, we find that Prufrock actually here represents those people in modern society, or those people in modern literature as well, who are the victims of hidden and unexplored feelings of anxiety, longing, sexual frustration, embarrassment, emasculation, and sense of decay at the same time. So we find that the poem basically it focuses on revealing Prufrock's sense of insecurity, which though is not portrayed directly by Eliot, but he does it, he presents it in a very crafted manner to the readers. Initially, when we begin reading the poem, it seems as if the epigraph is meaningless. It hardly has any connection with the poem. But as we proceed, or as we progress, we find that it is very much connected. It is very much associated with Prufrock. Since Prufrock, suffers from insecurity due to his lack of confidence, so he seems to give in to despondency, and at the same time suffer from immense isolation. Now this isolation could be self-imposed as well, because he of there is a line where a parallel is drawn between him and cat. This imagery of cat is very relevant because compared to dogs, cats are considered to be unsocial beings. Okay, so here also we find how Prufrock is unable to socialize with others, which results in his self-isolation. So as a narrator, we can say that Prufrock is a modern narrator, and he is not at all a romantic one. And although the title of the poem says that it is the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, but nowhere do we find Prufrock expressing his love for his beloved. Instead, this feeling of romance, which is in the beginning aroused in the minds of the readers, it immediately gets replaced by bathos, which implies an anticlimax. And then we come across the frustration, the alienation of a modern individual. And then as Prufrock, as a Prufrock situation is analyzed more and more and focused upon, we find that gradually he descends into his own, created personal hell. And here we can compare him to the protagonist in Dante's Inferno, Guido di Montefeltro. Guido di Montefeltro is seen that he is trapped, he is, in hell, and he is punished for the sins that he has committed. And Guido di Montefeltro is compared to Prufrock, because just as Montefeltro is stuck in hell because of his sins, Prufrock is also stuck in his own personal hell. So throughout, we can say that throughout the poem, we find that how the structure of the poem, this dramatic monologue, it serves as a medium which reveals to us Prufrock's mind, his feelings, his anxiety, his frustration. So there is hardly any trace of any love song. In fact, the imagery that is used by Eliot in the poem, as well as the words that he has chosen deliberately for his poem, together they provide a view into, or let's say it provides us an insight into Prufrock's egoistic, shy, and let's say paralyzed nature. So the metaphors, imagery, thing that has been employed by Eliot in the poem are very, very integral to the understanding of the content or the subject matter of the poem, because all these together, define the essence of modernist writing. And this poem very much focuses on the predicament of the modern man, who not only suffers from isolation, alienation from society, but he also suffers from a sense of fear and insecurity. At the same time, we find that they are, these modern men, they also suffer from indecisiveness. They think something, they decide at one time to do something, but then at the very next moment they retreat, which shows their indecisiveness. And the way we find Prufrock shifting, changing his mind, it shows that his mind is completely in an agitated, chaotic state that does not allow him to decide anything properly. So we can say that Prufrock may be suffering from an immense sense of fear, or an immense fear of love, because he is afraid of being punished by society for having dangerous libidinal or carnal desires, and his inertia or his paralysis to act upon his desire also results from this fear. So throughout the poem we get a very detailed picture of a modern man and his insecurity, and that how he is afraid to face reality. Even the setting of the poem, if you look at the setting, that too is in a very big, dirty city in the evening, where we find a speaker, Prufrock, that where he finds this frustrated, anxious, unhappy man who is torn between his conflicting fears of terror and his feelings of fear, in living and, in living his life, and the boredom that has enveloped everywhere during that time in society before the First World War took place. And with this, I come to the discussion of the themes very briefly, along with the discussion of Prufrock as a modernist text. I hope this lecture helps you in understanding the content of the poem. So if you like the lecture and if you find it helpful, please do subscribe to my channel, like it, share it, and do give your comments in the section below, so that I can try more and more to improve my videos for your benefit. Until then, bye bye.